Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make maple pecan caramels, and this is what they look like. These caramels have a really nice smooth and creamy texture. Because we're using a little bit of maple syrup, they almost have a nutty flavor, which is enhanced with the addition of some toasted pecans. So the first thing we need to do to make our caramels is to prepare our pan. You will need just a loaf pan, and I like to line it with some foil. So just take a piece, and then the easiest way I find to fit the foil into the pan is to just turn it over. A little noisy here. And just form it to the outside of your pan. And then it gives it a little bit of shape so it's easier to fit into the pan. And the reason we do this is because once the caramel has set, it's easy to lift the caramel out of the pan with the edges of the foil. That's why you want the foil to kind of go over the sides of your loaf pan. And then once you form it in there, then what we're going to do is brush the inside with some butter, and I like to just melt, maybe a tablespoon of butter, and then just use a pastry brush. And we're doing this so the caramel does not stick to the foil. So let's do that, like so, and then just put that aside. And whenever you're making candy which involves a cooked sugar syrup, what you want to do is have all your ingredients and your equipment out, because temperature is very important here. So the first thing you will need to do is to toast your pecans. You could even do this the day before. So preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, and then just put your pecans on a baking sheet. You can either use whole or chopped pecans, whichever you have, and just toast them, bake them for about 6 minutes, just until they're, very lightly brown and you can start to smell them. Let them cool, and then just coarsely chop like I've done here. Now, if you live in a place where you can't get pecans, you could use walnuts here, or really, walnuts is a good substitute for pecans. And then also, so have out, once we do our sugar syrup, when it gets to the right temperature, that's when we add our pecans, and you will also add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. You can leave that out, but I think the vanilla just adds another really nice flavor to the caramel. And also we're going to add, have 2 tablespoons, 25 grams of butter, and have your butter at room temperature. And I like to cut it into small pieces. That way it really melts really fast into our boiled syrup. And then equipment. You will need a saucepan. You want a pretty heavy, like a medium size, heavy bottom, because the reason you use a heavy bottom is you don't want your sugar syrup to scorch and burn. And it doesn't taste very good. And then have a lid as well. And then make things really easy is to have a candy thermometer. And you can use either type, the mercury type, or now it's pretty readily available, the digital, which has, you can set the temperature and it has a probe. And whichever type you're using, it's nice to have one where it has the clamp on the back, so then you can just clamp your thermometer right to the side of the pan. You don't have to hold it. So, and the other thing you will need is just a small little bowl of warm water with a pastry brush. I've just bought this silicone type of pastry brush, which is really nice, and that's to brush down the sides of our saucepan. So ingredients for our sugar syrup. You will need 1 cup, which is 210 grams of firmly packed light brown sugar. And then you will need just like 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of salt. You will need 3/4 cup, which is 175 grams if you want to go by weight, or 3/4 cup is, 180 milliliters, of heavy cream. or heavy whipping cream, and that's cream with a 35 to 40% butterfat content. Let's put that in there. That's going to give us that really rich and creamy flavor to our caramel, that cream. And then you will need, of course, it's maple pecan caramels, so you will need some pure maple syrup. So you'll need a half a cup, which is 160 grams, or 120 milliliters of pure maple syrup. I'm using a grade A dark amber here. I mean, there's different types, but that's, you know, the one I like. And like I said, that just really adds a lot of flavor. You have the dark, the brown sugar and the maple syrup. I mean, really a nice flavor. And then we're going to add a little corn syrup, light corn syrup, a quarter of a cup, which is 60 milliliters or 95 grams of light corn syrup. And you know, the good part, you could use golden syrup here. The reason I like to add, whenever I'm doing a boiled syrup, I like to add some corn syrup is, you know, there is a tendency, well, when you make any type of boiled sugar syrup, you can get sugar crystallization, which means a grainy textured candy, which we don't want. And so corn syrup, adding that really helps prevent that from happening. That's why I like to add a little. So what we're going to do is put this over like medium heat and bring it just up to a boil. Now you want to stir it. You can use like a wooden spoon, or I'm using a silicone spatula with a wooden handle. And you want to stir it all the time because you want the brown sugar to really dissolve. And then everything to heat up, of course. So just keep stirring and bring it just to a boil. Okay, so now we've brought it up to a boil. So you may have to adjust your heat. So stop stirring. And then what I like to do is I like to take the lid of my pot, put it on there, and let it boil for about a minute or two. And that will, the steam will wash down the sides of our saucepan. That way, if there is any sugar, undissolved sugar, having the lid on there, the steam will wash down the sides. Now, if you don't have a saucepan with a lid, then the other way you can do is just take your warm water with your pastry brush and just brush it down that way. So what we're going to do is just let it boil for about a minute. So it's been boiling like just over a minute. So let's remove the lid. So there we have it. And now what you want to do is take whatever type of thermometer and just clamp it. Now you don't want the end of your thermometer or probe to touch the bottom of the saucepan. You want it to just, so make sure. And then just put it in there like that. And now what we're going to do is let it boil. You know, you want a nice boil, not too, you may have to adjust your heat. So caramel, you can boil your syrup anywhere from 246 degrees to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 118 to about 121 degrees Celsius. And if you want a really, really soft caramel that kind of dissolves on your tongue very easily and just holds its shape, I would boil it to 246 Fahrenheit, which is 118 Celsius. I like to take mine to about 248 Fahrenheit, 120 Celsius. I find that gives it a little more shape and a little harder. So, I mean, you can kind of play with that. Just keep in mind, if you live in a humid climate, you may want to take it up to the the higher end of that temperature, because humidity does affect temperature or texture. Also, do not stir your sugar syrup. I find that kind of prevents the sugar crystallization if you just let it boil away on its own. Adjust the heat if you have to. And that is another reason why you want a heavy bottom saucepan, because that will prevent any scorching or burning. So, and another thing, as this is boiling, you may get some sugar crystals forming on the inside of your saucepan. So that's what our warm water here with our brush. So what you do is take that and just brush the sides down, and that will dissolve any of the sugar crystals, which will prevent that grainy texture, which if you've ever had that, you don't want. So, although you still have the taste, it doesn't have that really nice mouthfeel. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to let that boil away until it gets to 248 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 120 degrees Celsius. Okay, so we're at 248, so take it off the heat. It will continue to rise a little more, so just keep that in mind. Careful, it's hot. And then what we're going to do is add our butter. You will get some foaming up here. And your vanilla extract. And your chopped pecans. Just stir it. Oh, smells so good in here. Okay, just want to make sure everything's all mixed in. And then put my gloves back on here, and then just pour it into your saucepan, like so. And that's it. I prefer not to scrape it out too much, because just in case I have some sugar crystallizing there. So, and then if you need to, if the pecans aren't even, you could just even them out like that, and we're done. So now, of course, this is very hot and it's liquid. So what we're going to do is just set your pan on a wire rack and then just let it cool until it firms up. Now that usually takes, depending on your temperature, at least an hour. And so when we come back, I will show you how to get them out of the pan and how to cut them into squares. Okay, so now we're ready. So I've taken out of the pan, just lift it up and peel back the foil. Hopefully, I mean, depending on how much you cooked your syrup, your sugar syrup, it could stick a bit to your foil. If it does, sometimes I put it in the fridge, and if it gets a little cold, your caramel gets cold, it's easier to peel off. So now, and the thing is, if it's soft, what you can do, which is great about caramel, is you can just kind of put it back into shape. So now what I'm going to do is just take a sharp knife. Sometimes it helps if your caramel is really sticky, you could lightly oil your knife, and then it's pretty good. And then you can always use like a straight edge to kind of release it, or just peel off the foil. Okay, that looks good. And so, you can see mine's soft and pliable enough that I can kind of form it if it loses its shape. So there we have it. We have what's kind of cool. I like how the pecans rise to the top, and then you have that beautiful caramel underneath. And so you can cut these as big, small. You can do squares, rectangles, whatever you like. But I'm just going to, like so. I mean, these would make a great gift. But once you start eating them, it's hard to stop. So I just put them in, because they are quite rich. I like to just in small squares, but like I said, you can form them. So I'm just going to take a little bit. Although once I start, I can't stop. Oh. That is so good. You got a smooth, and I mean so smooth and creamy texture. And then that maple syrup with the brown sugar and then the pecans, It really, a great flavor. So try making these. Great for your family, or I mean, perfect to give, put in a box and give as a gift. So enjoy, and until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.